Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Siegen Sarwick. Siegen?
Hey, Dev. Hey, everybody.
Hi, Siege. How you doing today? How was your day?
Yeah, so how was my day?
How is
My
your
day's
day?
only just started. I will say though, I have slowly over the last couple of months really started to develop this habit of getting up like really early in the morning, like really early for me. So like 5:30. I know there are some people where that's just how their day starts. But it's new to me. All right. But
That's earlier
anyway.
than I wake up, and I feel like I wake up crazy early.
Well, you know what? What's really weird is like been watching a bunch of like shows lately and sitcoms and stuff like that, and really kind of noticing like the weird like morning ritual thing that those shows always seem to believe happens in every household across this country. This idea that like everybody is up in time for like mom to make breakfast and like the kids to sit around the table and talk about what their day is going to be before then they go out and do it. And it's just like it's so weird to me because like high school started for me at like 7:30. like
Yeah,
and I was lucky if I woke up at like by 6:30 to get ready. Like usually I was waking up around like 7 and then running to school. So like the idea of being up with time to like go about your business in the morning, and then like, school was just something that happens eventually, or work was just something that you got to eventually, is just such a weird like view on like a person's actual day to day.
it's the second biggest myth society has sold us. The first biggest myth, religion. Speaking about what you're
Hard swings.
Well, I'm Devin Decker, is what I'm going to do. Speaking of that, speaking on that whole thing, I had a really odd conversation this week about time zones and how people don't wake up with the sun. And my argument was, no, that's completely not true. People wake up with the sun. And they're like, no, people wake up to their alarms. And as much as I want to believe that, I'm speaking with a guy who lived in Ohio right on the right near the border of
Hmm.
Eastern and Central time, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just the thing. So while it was sunny for me at like 6 a.m., it was still dark for you. And ditto, when the sun was gone at 4 p.m., you would still have sunlight
Yeah.
at the
Right.
at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
and it's this thing that people don't seem to understand, that even within time zones, the sun is something that moves and shifts. And the reason I think about it is, like, we went to school at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm
Right.
fairly certain my day started at 7:15. I think that's the same time that you said. I know that I needed to be in homeroom at 7:05. And first of all, I'm going to dress down the Coventry High School homeroom system because I have a real fucking problem with it. And clearly
Okay.
it still bothers me.
Like I said, hard swings. Let's do
Yeah, no,
it.
I have real fun things to talk about, and but this is, you set me off with the morning ritual thing,
Hey, man.
especially because my usual Sunday morning ritual was kind of interrupted today, and it's
Yeah.
been interrupted every Sunday, but today it actually felt like outright fuck you, Devin, from the universe. But
Okay.
but going towards what we were talking about before, homeroom in high school should just be that 5 to 7 minutes where you check in to show that you are in school that day. It should not be possible to be late to homeroom.
No, right. That's the point of
That's
homeroom
the
is it's
whole
that
point of
bumper
homeroom.
time. Yeah,
But
yeah.
this is, we Coventry High School, at least while I was going there, right? And it's been 20 some odd years. Let's be honest about it. It's been 18 years because my 20-year anniversary is 2 years away. God, I'm getting old. But situationally, right? My locker in freshman year was located right next to my homeroom. I'm
Right.
talking, from my locker, I could throw a rock and break my homeroom window. So it really wasn't difficult to go to my locker and then go to homeroom and not have an issue with tardiness to homeroom, which again is such a foreign concept to me. Honestly, should not be the case at all.
Right.
But situationally. And then like 10th grade, my locker was on the complete west side of the campus, and I had to go to homeroom on the far east side of the campus. So if I went to my locker when I got to school, I would have to run to make it to homeroom on time. And I talked to the teacher about that, and because everybody's lockers are similar, right? And I'm like, look,
Yeah.
if we get in at before the end of homeroom, can you mark us present? Like, can you not be one of these people who, like, you're late to homeroom? Can that not be a thing that exists in this homeroom? Because it's just not feasible for us to be in this room at homeroom and go to our locker from the time that we arrive at the school. And I had a really cool teacher who was like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm glad that you brought this to my attention. Because I didn't present it like a little shit. I presented it like this is a real thing. But I had friends that same year who, same sort of situation, and they would get marked late to homeroom every single day. And their teacher was not understanding about it. And it was such a problem, this lateness, because if you accumulated lates at Coventry High School, you would get detention, which I don't understand that. So these guys wind up getting like detention every 3 days that they're late. And who the fuck is that helping, honestly? Giving them detention because they're late to homeroom? It doesn't make sense.
What kind of behavioral work are they doing in detention to make them not show up late, especially when it's clearly just late to homeroom, right? Like, it's not like they're skipping the first 2 hours of the school day every day, and that is a conversation that somebody needs to have with them. Like, if they are clearly on their way to school and there before classes start, like, what is detention? What behavior are you correcting?
Yeah. And what it finally boiled down to is this became such a problem at the school that my senior year, it was senior because I was reading The Bourne Identity. I love how I can do that. Reading The Bourne Identity for fun. I bought it at a yard sale. The amount of detentions that people had
as you became a man from boy.
It's actually how I did my college essay. It was based on The Bourne Identity. It was me waking up with me having no memories and then running into people and them telling me my accomplishments. It worked, I guess. I got into a college. Actually, I got into a university. I shouldn't sell myself short.
College, so
yeah. It wasn't Ivy League, but what does the Ivy League mean anymore? And we'll talk about that too. This is all the dressing. This is all the foreshadowing. I'm excited about this episode of the Say Report. And it got so bad that people were late so much to homeroom, like specifically to homeroom, that detention was overwhelmed. And what they ended up doing was creating a Saturday detention specifically for people who were late to homeroom.
Oh my God.
Which I then got Saturday detention for something not related to it. And that my first thing was, I thought this was just for people who couldn't make it to homeroom on time. And that glare daggers. And I showed up to that detention wearing a bathrobe with pajama bottoms underneath, no top, just the bathrobe. It was sealed. And my copy of Bourne Identity and big old combat boots. And I arrived fashionably late to Saturday detention so that everybody would be seated, but I was still there on time. I made sure that I wasn't late to Saturday detention because God knows what they do there. They probably just shoot you in the fucking head at that point. You have no concept of time. You do not belong in society.
We need to remove you from the equation.
And I walk in like that. I got a round of applause from the students in Saturday detention for my just like lack of giving a damn about the whole affair. And then they actually got rid of the Saturday detentions and amended the student contract so that if you got to homeroom, you were not late. And like, really, that's all I wanted to have happen in the beginning. I shouldn't have to do like formal protests, like showing up in a bathrobe. And then one of the teachers is like, you have to go home for the way you're dressed. And I'm like, there's actually no dress code for Saturday detention because there's also no Saturday detention in our student contract. Jesus. This is really unconstitutional. What you doing to us right here? We shouldn't be here. Plus, I don't drive and my ride is gone. So I'm here at the school.
It's kind of your responsibility to take care of me now.
You guys volunteered to do this. And it was like 50 to 75 kids sat in the gymnasium because there was no other place to put us.
Yeah, it's a weird concept of punishing kids for being late, and not least of which because numerous studies into this sort of stuff has proven time and time again that it is generally not students' fault. Like, eventually responsibility needs to be taken, but there is this idea that like there are a lot of kids that depend on rides from other people that maybe they're the ones running late, or like if they're coming in on a bus system, like are you holding them accountable for the system that's put in place by the government as well? Like whether that's a school bus or a city bus, like you can't hold them to be responsible for those sticking to schedules and stuff too. So like this idea that a bumper is created for kids to get to school on time and be able to get there, get information. The other part of homeroom is also to be there so that you can get information about what's going on in the school and things like that.
Yeah.
It's always good to stay updated for that stuff. But like that's why it's there, to then turn it around and turn it into a punishment, which is what we always do in schools, right? Is like we create a program that is meant to benefit some people and we do everything we can to front load it with benefits, but then nobody keeps an eye on it, and eventually kids end up with, oh, I don't know, say thousands of dollars in lunch debt because they can't afford the school lunches, but that's the only program that can feed them and that sort of stuff. We set kids up for failure a lot in our education
Oh,
system.
we
Let's
set
put it
kids
that
up
way.
for failure. That's what our education system is for. It's to set kids up for failure. But you've already talked a lot about education so far. I don't want to delve any deeper into it. I do want to readdress what you were talking about morning rituals, because we're early morning when we were going to school in Rhode Island, and that's because the sun was up. But then I think about shows that are set in the Midwest, and the one that I'm specifically thinking of is the Steve Harvey Show. The old, I think it was the WB network. It might have been UPN.
UPN, I think, yeah.
Either way, great show. I grew up with that show. Stanley Bullethead is one of my favorite characters ever. Yo, they call me Bullethead because I got a bullet in my head. And like that was a character in a Steve Harvey show. And Cedric the Entertainer, Cedric the Entertainer looks good in the Steve Harvey Show. But I watched an episode of the Steve Harvey Show. It was the first episode, and he's all like, "These kids are not my life. When that bell rings at 3:15, I'm out." And I'm like, I was done with school at 1:20 every day. And then I think about the fact that that show is set in the Midwest. So like, yeah, with the time zone and everything, why would they expect kids to be in school while it's still dark out? As weird as it was, that first lunch was at 10:35 at my school. Imagine if it was 10:35 and the sun was just rising.
I don't think it gets that bad.
No, but I'm saying, like, there's a reason, like, the sun does affect how we schedule certain things.
Yes.
To say that the whole world is only based on alarms and we no longer rise with the sun. I mean, in a lot of ways it's true, but our days, especially our days for our children, are affected by it. Because I know people who live further west than the East Coast whose days at school don't start until like 9 a.m.
Yeah.
And that's crazy to me. Like, is that setting them up to better work in society?
Well, I mean, the other part that factors into a lot of this sort of stuff is also the idea that a lot of older high school kids and things like that are expected to be home before their kids, their younger siblings and stuff are, because a lot of them help in raising those families and stuff like that too. So that can also affect stuff like the idea of like so there's all sorts of outside factors that come into scheduling it. But like daylight is definitely one of them. There's a reason we don't just go to school at night instead.
Well, unless you go to night school, but that's not really for children. That's for adults. Well, right.
We don't tend to do that to 6 and 7 year olds that are developing humans, right?
Imagine that. Imagine if instead of bedtime or school time at 9 p.m.
You're not
See
tired.
you in 6 hours.
Let me set this alarm off for you so that you'll wake back up again, and then you can get back to your day. All right.
I mean, the other thing is that time is a construct, so we just create however we want, which brings me to something that's been floating around in my head for a bit. Did you watch the Cowboy Bebop on Netflix?
Not past the first episode that we talked about, and I enjoyed that, but like not enough clearly to go back to it, I guess. Why?
All right. So they did a big deal. There's one episode of the original Cowboy Bebop where you see a watch face, and it's instead of 12, it's 15. And Cowboy Bebop Netflix really took that to like the next fucking level in terms of like they end up buying a VCR, and the VCR, instead of flashing 12, flashes 15 o'clock. Like they took what was this one-off joke that the creator of Cowboy Bebop was very proud of, the fact that he got a 15 watch face into the show. But then, like, because it was so in my face watching Cowboy Bebop, I started thinking about, so do they have a 15-hour day, or do they have a 30-hour day akin to what we do? Does that 15 represent twice for 30-hour days? And I did all the math out in this crazy thing. So first of all, just like from the start, what do you think? Do you think that they live 15-hour days, or do you think they have 30-hour days?
I think that they have 30-hour days. Would make the more sense in terms of scheduling and things like that, but also space time. I
Right.
mean, space time gets real weird, but like the idea that it's probably better to hedge your bets on the longer side than the shorter.
Well, I went with the shorter side, and I did the math to back it up. Because if they have 15-hour days, it's actually equal to like 21 and a quarter hours. Because you also have to think if it's a 15 instead of a 12, an hour is 75 minutes. So once you have a 75-minute hour, that starts to affect what you can get done in it. And
Yeah.
our thing, based on 24-hour time that we have in our world, right? Thanks to the Mayans, I'm pretty sure, are the ones who came up with the 24-hour day thing. I might be completely off with that, but I want to
I
thank the Mayans for something this week.
I mean, I know the Greeks were working on this too, but I have no idea when our concepts of actual
Okay.
time
But
came
yeah,
into play.
but so 24-hour time, essentially we split our lives up into 8-hour sections where we have 8 hours of work, 8 hours of play, and 8 hours of rest. And again, that's not a hard and fast rule, but that's really what like the medical board tried to shove down our throats with. You should get 8 hours of sleep every night.
Right.
Is if you sleep for 8 hours, you'll be able to work your 8 hour day, and then you have 8 hours to do with what you want. And it might be before or after work, however it works. But then looking at a 15-hour day and splitting it up into 5 hours of rest, 5 hours of work, 5 hours of play, I actually think it would be a more efficient way to live your life. And when you think about space time, I think it would be better since every time you land on a planet, time as we know it is relative to your distance and location from the sun. A lot of the times, right? Like high noon is when the sun is right at the top of the day,
Right.
and midnight is when it's the darkest outside. Like those are where those come from, and it comes with the relative position of the sun based upon where you are on the earth. This is fascinating to me. I'm sorry. If the entire empire, the entire federation adopted a 15-hour day, it would actually probably be easier to adapt to moving from planets to planets.
Well, you figure like moving planet to planet, it's like figuring out time zones.
Yeah.
Is like, well, we have to add this much time to the clock in order to make it work here, but it's all based on this understanding of this particular time set because that's what our government recognizes. But yeah, I mean, the problem is that you've got to think about it in terms of not just distance from the sun, but also how fast the planet
The
is
planet is
moving,
moving, right?
and things like that. So like, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. Is it rotating? Which direction are they rotating in? Like that kind of thing comes into play. There's all sorts of weird stuff that affects what we consider to be like time, and that's why space, like time and space. I should stop saying space time because that's actually a different
That's a
thing.
completely different thing. But yeah,
Time, but it's why time and space is such a hard concept to really comprehend. And one of the biggest things that fascinates me about things like going to say even just Mars, right, is what is life going to be like on Mars? Like a large part of that is affected by things like the hard facts of like atmosphere and the dirt and all that stuff. What can we grow there? What can we do there? What can we build with and all that? Like that all is definitely important, but also just like for our own sanity, like what happens, how long is a day there, and how does that going to affect the ways in which humans do things? Because I think that to your point about the idea of like in this show, the idea of it being a 5-5-5 separation, that is still close enough to a pretty normal day that I don't feel like it would have any drastic effects. I don't know much about sleep studies and that sort of stuff, but the ways in which that would kind of line up with our understanding currently wouldn't break my brain enough to really kind of affect me. If somebody said like, a 5 hours of sleep and then 10 hours of doing your business throughout the day, like that tracks for me. Hell, as it is, that's basically what I do.
yeah. I mean,
Right?
I think that's the other thing is that it really works for me in
Yeah.
terms of how I personally interact with the world. A 5-5-5 makes sense, but really what it is for me that like I always have to remind myself is that each hour you're getting an extra 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So every 4 hours you're getting an extra hour.
Right.
If we're going off of our normal sort of situation.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It really fascinated because like the 30-hour day, right, which would be the other way to interpret a 15-face clock, I feel like it would just be like too long.
Too much.
The delineation between each thing would
I
be
will say that a lot of the idea of colonization is going to come down to let's say we're going to lean on a lot of military style tactics in order to survive, right? Like
Yeah.
when we do that eventually, and it is not unusual for them to go some upwards of 20 hours without sleep, and then get 2 hours of sleep, and then get 10 hours of sleep. Like that is actually pretty normal in that particular circumstance. So it might go that way.
You actually bring up the other reason why I would think the 15-hour day is the standard for them, and that is because of the military being in charge of it. If we're basing it off of, and they use 24-hour time, I think it would be easier for them to just say, all right, it's a 15-hour day, and then just use the 15 for each one.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just something that kind of fascinated me as I was thinking about this one stupid thing that is a throwaway kind of joke, but a fun little visual moment in the original Cowboy Bebop. And then they decided, oh, let's lean heavily into it for the live action show. It's probably why they got canceled.
It's one of my it's one of my favorite tropes. And for the record, people need to stop using the word canceled when a show is just not brought back. They fulfilled the contract that they signed. Like that's not the same as canceling. You know what I mean? Like if you're an actor and you sign a contract and you say you're going to work on 6 episodes of a show and you do 6 episodes of a show and then you move on to other projects and then somebody starts talking about how you got kicked off that show that you did that you were on and you're like, no, that's not what happened. I finished the show that we intended to finish. It's very different than having things being in production and getting canceled, which is why it has such a negative connotation. It's weird to me when people use that concept for a show that hasn't because they'll still say that about like Firefly got canceled because they literally walked in the room and pulled the plug on a scene that was being shot, right? And then like something like Swamp Thing that happened, but on a streaming service versus other shows around that just ended. Like there's a difference. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway.
I don't know. I mean, I get where you're coming from with that. I actually think it's a way that the creators have weaponized their fan bases, the idea of the cancellation. And it really comes down to, and feeds into a question I wanted to ask you during this whole crazy thing. Because I've just got a bunch of crazy thoughts in my mind, in addition to topics to discuss. The creative person knowing that, okay, we only have a contract through these 5 seasons. So rather than wrap everything up in the final episode, you do something like Quantum Leap, where did Sam Beckett get home? We'll never know, right?
Right.
We ended on a cliffhanger, hoping that cliffhanger will force the hand of the network to give you at least one more season. My Name is Earl is another huge thing of it, an example of that, where they literally ended with to be continued, and then no continuation came. Though, earlier this week, for the first time in 8 years, the My Name is Earl Facebook page had its profile picture changed, and people are losing their minds. So when we get to something like Cowboy Bebop, I think the reason why people say it was canceled is that it could have ended. It could have just ended as this was 10 episodes of a live action adaptation of this story, but then at the very end, they put in this 30-second fucking scene that teases what more could happen. And then when it says we're not doing a second season, fans, and especially that moment, can I spoil the live action Cowboy Bebop final moment for you?
Yeah.
Like, is it? I mean, it's a live action adaptation based upon a 30-year-old show. So sorry for the spoilers on Cowboy Bebop. It ends. It comes to a beautiful end. Like, Spike does his whole shootout thing, and then he ends up slumped down on the ground, and you're like, all right, well, then that's the end of Spike Spiegel, and this has been an interesting story with him. But then Crazy Ed comes and wakes him up and goes, Spike, come on, we have to go fight the Butterfly Man. And so they introduce Ed, who has not been in the show the last 10 episodes. So you haven't had one of the main characters of the Cowboy Bebop series this entire live action event. And he references what happens in the Cowboy Bebop movie with the Butterfly Man. So it really feels like, okay, that's where the show is going to go. Now, as somebody did, I'm like, well, that can also be taken as the fact that Spike is fucking dead. Because that's what the Butterfly Man sort of represents.
Right.
And it could just be, we have to go deal with this into the afterlife, and Ed is now some sort of Reaper. But that's not how people take it. People take it as a hint to there's going to be more of this show. So then when you hear, well, the show has been we're not doing a second season. Because you're not wrong. Netflix didn't say we canceled it. They just said
They
we're
also
not
didn't
doing a
say
second
we're never
season.
doing a second season.
Right.
They also used the language, we have not renewed the show at this time.
Yeah.
And that's what they always do, because as we've seen time and time again over the last 5 or 6 years, is like dipping back into the well 10 years later sells. So
Yes.
like it's weird to me to write off a show. It is not the same as having somebody cut it off mid, like literally like what happened on Swamp Thing, where like somebody showed up on set as they were filming a scene and was like, by the way, this is going to be the last episode y'all film, and like people freaking scrambled, and they were able to I think James Wan, right, was the big creative lead on that one. Am I
I believe so.
misremembering
I
that?
forget that Swamp Thing exists, even though I
And like
loved Swamp Thing.
well, and so he was able to be like in this like wait a moment, at least let us finish what we're doing, and they were able to score like an extra like episode to like basically condense what was supposed to be the last 3 episodes, and it was a nightmare scenario all around. That's not what happened in this case, right? And that's not what happens on a lot of these shows that people will call out, things like Netflix or Fox and things like that for canceling. And like it's really bizarre to me when people want to weaponize that concept, because as a I don't know, as an artist, I wouldn't want that to be the story about what happened. But like I do know you're right that there are definitely artists that use that as a bartering chip, essentially.
Yeah. And I have a problem with that. I think that you should probably end every season of a television show as if it's going to be the last. Let's call it the British television method. As I've started to watch Peep Show, and I'm 6 seasons through, and literally every 6th episode of a series of Peep Show feels like, oh, this could be it. If there's no more Peep Show after this, I would be okay with it.
Yeah.
I would understand it. And actually, when you get to like the 5th
Right.
season, and it ends with Mark getting married to Sophie in the episode called The Wedding, and it's like, that feels like they're ready for it to end too. But then the BBC comes
Yeah,
around
yeah.
and is like, here's £1 million. Do you want to
Yeah.
do a 6
Yeah,
series?
it's definitely it's one of the ways in which like television, the business, really invades television, the entertainment, a lot of the times. And and the same can be said for movies. The amount of times that they will create a thing now and they really want it to be a franchise, to the point where they'll neuter the product in order to really kind of build up the opportunity for later stuff. A good example of this would be the Hellboy remake, where they have that entire, what is it, mid credits, after credits scene where they finally find Abe. And like, anybody out there that was a fan of that series because of the movies and not the comics went to that movie expecting to see a character that wasn't in that movie, and then it comes in the after credits scene, and they're hoping that that's going to build up that fervor for people to want to see another one of those movies. And it doesn't work, and then we're left with this like bummer of a thing, because that story could have easily had this character in it, and them not being there, it's lesser for it, in my opinion, right? And like that idea that they knew what they were doing by saving stuff for other possible franchise, like whether it was going to be TV, movie, even just comics again, I don't know. But like holding stuff back is not a new tactic, and really it's a dangerous game to play, because if you hold too much back, it really does like kneecap the thing that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, most recently, I think of something like Dune, where he's like, I'm doing this as part 1 of a Dune adaptation, and they're like, all right, but we're only giving you the money for the one movie. So,
Yeah.
good luck. It has to do really well for you to get the second part. You
Well,
sure you don't want to try to make just the whole movie?
and then you start getting into really dangerous territory that I will now dub Aragon territory, right? Where you're getting to the point where you've taken so much out in order to make this first product, just to kind of proof of concept it in that way for like audiences and for the studio, that you now kind of have a really hard time coming back and retelling the stuff you should have told the first time. In Aragon, like, they eliminate an entire race of characters that end up becoming the main point to the sequel series, and so by erasing them, they literally can't make any more of those movies, which is why those movies never go anywhere. Plus, they don't do well, but like they knew that they weren't going to do well because they couldn't make the sequel books. Dune got kind of close to that. There are a lot of characters and a lot of plot lines that kicked off while his father was, I mean, spoilers for Dune. Should we not talk? I
We should talk
should
about
say that.
Dune. It came out
But
in October.
right, yeah, but a lot of the stuff that happens when the Atreides first get to the planet and they are throwing parties and they're inviting other delegates and things like that, and you learn a lot more about the politics and the inner workings of the universe writ large. And there's an entire plot line that is introduced about him possibly being married off and him not truly being in love, but it's good for political gain and all this. That is the rest of the book. And so by not telling that, they have to cover that ground in the next movie. But how do they do that now that his father's dead and they're not in that palace anymore? Like, they've completely kind of cut off the ability to do that. So they're going to either have to do some weird flashback stuff or completely change up
Siege, I'm gonna need you to hold. So I'm getting a call from J.J. Abrams. What's that,
Mhm.
JJ? Oh, flashbacks?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess that'll work. Thanks for making Lost, J.J. Abrams.
They'd be flashing back to the first movie.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
It would be
It'd be
really
so
shitty
crazy.
for them to do it. By the way, you didn't see the scene before, but here's Oscar Isaacs again in the palace, and just before he died, he says this instead. Oh, okay. That solves everything.
Like that's
Yeah.
that's the only way they could do it. It's gonna be like the second episode of the Clerks animated series where they reminisce to a bunch of stuff that's literally never happened because it's the second episode of the series.
People will talk all the time, and I'm happy to have the conversation about studio interference and the ways in which that can really affect like the piece, right? But we should more often acknowledge that there are also some things that artists do from time to time that are not helpful either.
Yeah, and that is strictly on the eyes of the artist. But talking about the cancellation of it all, I mean, I was thinking about it today, the fact that we're never going to have Divergent finished because they decided that, we're going to split Allegiant into 2 movies. There was no reason to split that into 2 movies. It's not much longer than the other books in the series. They did it specifically, to try to drag it out and make more money by having it has 2 releases, but I mean that's the only thing. There's no other thing there. They tried to drag it out so instead of 1 big money making movie, they could make 2 big money making movies, which was also really a weird idea because the first movie did crazy good, but Insurgent really didn't do enough to warrant making Allegiant a 2-parter.
Right.
And my favorite thought, and it drifts into my head just like randomly at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I wake up with my eyes open and think, oh my God, they're gonna do a TV movie to finish it off. And they're like, no, they're not. They talked about it. But Devon, that was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
You're never going to get a finish. And then I thank God, or whatever deity you want to choose, I thank Dakota Johnson's Madam Web for the fact that with 50 Shades of Grey, they just did 3 movies for the 3 books.
Yeah. Well, and what was the weird one where the Mortal Instruments series, where they started with the movie and the franchise didn't go anywhere, so they turned it into a TV show. And the TV show, by all accounts, did pretty decent as far as like a decent enough fan base to keep it going for a couple of seasons. But like that idea of like transferring there is definitely something that's in the cards. It's not unusual, right? It's really weird the ways in which people will look at these projects and cast scorn on one show that ended and didn't get renewed, and then like be completely fine with other shows that didn't get renewed. Like, it's just such a weird, like, it's a weird view for somebody that's not in the room for those conversations to be so adamant about, I guess, because we don't know on all of these. Sometimes we do have information, all this stuff going on with DiMaggio and Hulu right now in trying to bring back the show. And I think currently the talking point on that is that they're just talking about just not putting Bender in the show anymore, which is a weird choice. But like, if that's what they need to do in order to not feel like they've completely screwed themselves. But like that kind of stuff we are privy to just because that transparency is out there. And even then we don't know everything, but we don't always get that privilege, and we don't always know what's going on,
It's true. It's very true. All right. So, in order to avoid what happened last week, where I asked Sejun to do something and then I didn't bring it up in the episode, I'm gonna bring up a topic here. It's sort of related to everything that we've been talking about. Sejun, were you able to watch an episode of Nickelodeon's Warped?
No.
Okay.
But I was able to watch a bunch of clips. It's so new that it's behind, I think, Paramount's paywall or something like that.
It's not behind any pay. It's behind cable TV paywall. You
Yeah.
need to have a television provider to watch it on the Nickelodeon website. And
Yeah.
even then, with ads, like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not just free and
Yeah.
clear.
But what I was able to do is I do have a bunch of clips and bits up on YouTube in order to like still hype it up because they know people are still going to those places to try and watch stuff. And so what I did is I have watched probably a half a dozen different 5 to 10 minute clips of the show out of the 4 episodes I think that currently exist
There
from
are
what I can tell.
6 episodes.
6 episodes?
Though I
Okay,
think
yeah.
they're trying to silently erase the pilot, which
Okay.
is so crazy to me. It's just why
Well,
I'm like, I want you to watch the newest episode, but also the pilot because they're trying to get rid of the
so
pilot.
I think the pilot is probably where most of the clips that I've seen have come from, interestingly enough, just because it seems to be a lot about introducing a particular character and her getting hired and things like that. Am I wrong? Is that
No,
not the pilot
that is
episode?
definitely the
Okay.
pilot episode.
Okay.
So
So from what I can tell, they have decided to remake Mork and Mindy in a comic book shop. That's basically what I got.
cool. That's very interesting.
If you told me that that girl that they introduce as the one that gets hired turns out to be an alien from another planet, like I would 100% believe you. And on top of that, the ways in which she just fucking just riffs on shit in the environment, it is like having Robin Williams on high
She's
on
great.
cocaine.
The character Ruby, played by Kate Godfrey, is who we're
Yes.
talking about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And all right, so here's the reason why I'm watching Warped. And congratulations, marketing and capitalism and all that. Your system works. Devon Decker's here to confirm that. Because for some reason, on Twitch, that was the only ad I was getting for like a month. Just like a month of ads for this show Warped on Nickelodeon.
Is some weird targeted marketing. I would get all sorts of like mortgage stuff and things like that out here.
What-
I maybe get a movie depending on if it's like Spider-Man or something. I might get like one of those. But other than that, like what a weird how fucked was the algorithm that that's all it wanted to show you?
Well, and that's where the question became with this latest episode, where I had to literally pause it and say, am I the target audience for this show? Is it just me? Is it like, because the stuff that happens in it is so close to my own experiences, it's sort of scary. I've watched all 6 episodes that are currently available. And yeah, no, and then it was Twitch ads, and the Twitch ads just got to me, and I'm like, I need to check it out. I need to see what's going. And I watched it, and after watching the first episode, and so watching the first episode, the whole alien thing, even though it's there in the back of my mind, it's pretty well written off that Ruby is just like a quirky girl. She's probably a manic pixie dream girl in a lot of ways, especially with what happens in, I want to say the 5th episode. Yeah, it's the 5th episode, Sandwiched, where Milo, the other character, I don't know the actor who plays Milo, unfortunately, because Kate Godfrey is really the reason that I keep coming back. Kate Godfrey, and there's another female character, and she is just wonderful with what she has on display in the show, in terms of like, I'm going to actually act in this Nickelodeon show. I know what this is, but I'm giving 100% to this performance.
Yeah.
And it's one of those situations where in the 5th episode, he's ready to roll out. So there's an underlying arc to Warped, and that is that Milo is a writer of a graphic novel, and he needs somebody to do the animation for that graphic novel. And Ruby comes in, and even though she sort of upsets the apple cart for Milo, at the end of the day, they decide to become partners to make this graphic novel a reality. And in the 5th episode, they're opening up a new sandwich shop, and they decide that they're going to do a character drop for the graphic novel at the sandwich shop, which is sort of like a teaser for a character in the novel to try to build a groundswell and have an audience there for when it eventually comes out. I don't know if those are real or not. I've never heard of just a character drop before, but
I've never heard him called that. That sounds like some like Zoomer nonsense to label a thing that has been happening for a while. But artists on like Instagram and Twitter will definitely put web artists that will definitely put character work out there as they're working on characters to generate like excitement and you know, a lot of the times, you know, we'll use it as a springboard to find out what people are liking about what they're doing, and so they can change stuff up. That's not unusual. Basically, I mean, you're talking about an artist playtesting their work and using social media to do it. That is definitely something
Right.
that has
So
been
I
happening
think
for a while.
what threw me
This is
off
just seems to
about
be
it
taking it to an
was,
extreme.
yeah, we have to do it at a live event is what really
Right.
threw me off, because like doing it online makes sense, right? I follow plenty of people on art sites. I've been reading webcomics since webcomics started.
Right.
I'm friendly enough with a lot of people who created webcomics to have discussions with them about characters. So like the internet exists, but Warped kind of doesn't want you to know that. It's a little strange. But what Dale said after the first episode was, "This is high fidelity in a comic shop." And that was
Yeah.
such a like. I'm like, yeah, it really is. It kind of is. Milo is your John Cusack, but he's also, I'm gonna guess 18. I think they might be in high school or just at the tail end of it. They never talk about school problems, but then Darby, the other female character, she talked about her parents don't understand her art in also in the 5th episode.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a weird thing for like an adult to say. And the actor who plays that character is in her 20s. And I could almost believe if they were a bunch of early 20-year-olds who are working at this comic shop and just like, we decided not to go to college.
Yeah. This is where we work, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's sort of like a proto Clerks, but they're younger. Like they're where we were when we saw Clerks and looked up to those people. It's strange, but there's a reason why I bring up Clerks, and that's because the 6th episode is called Plagiarize, and I shit you not, it featured Kevin Smith playing Kevin Smith, and it was weird. It was weird. It was weird. It was weird to see Kevin Smith on a Nickelodeon show playing himself. And like, I've watched iCarly. I've seen all sorts of like weird celebrity cameos, most notably Michelle Obama showing up to be on iCarly in that one episode. Which like,
I think the best example of this might be Kevin James showing up as not Paul Blart, but basically Paul Blart in Liv and Maddie for an episode.
that makes sense because the daughter from the Paul Blart movies is in Liv and Maddie, right?
Is in yes,
Yeah,
but
okay.
I think the Las Vegas one there. What is it called? Blart 2 there.
Yeah.
I think I blarted.
Paul Blart 2. I think that's what it's called.
There's no subtitle for it. All right.
Who blarted? That's the third one.
Yeah, but I think that movie was in process. Like I think it was coming out soon,
Yeah.
and she has a bigger role in that movie for sure. And so that, like from a marketing standpoint, that's why it happened. But there is no reason why this character had to be this character in this. Like for instance, there's no reason why this character had to be on a Segway. Like it is purely just like marketing being like, let's just have Paul Blart show up, and then somebody being like, well, we can't do that. And somebody's like, can we have like Jack Shark show up? like what can we do instead? Like yeah. And so that one just is like, it is almost offensive in the ways in which it is done.
Yeah, so Kevin Smith shows up and he's like, oh, I'm in town shooting Space Conflicts, which is the Star Wars show that they're in LA, obviously. Like, not obviously, but a lot of shows are being shot around them.
Yeah.
And it's very sunny. So it's either Philadelphia or LA. I'm so sorry for that. I hate myself for what I just said. And he shows up and he's like, as a fellow proprietor of comic book shops, I like to check out the local stuff. And Warped is legendary. Everybody knows Warped. And I'm just like, no, they fucking don't, Kevin Smith. What the hell is happening?
I mean, they're introducing the idea of the celebrity cameo because now what they can do is they can now, from this point forward going on, have anybody show up, and the reason can just be they're here to check out the legendary comic shop.
I mean, it was really good. The 4th episode, the one where they go to the Space Conflict set because they hear that a character that they all liked is going to be coming back for new episodes, and he's played by Josh. I can't think of his last name from All That. He's in the Good Burger movie.
Oh man, yeah,
Josh,
the scrawny dude.
Yeah, I can't think of something. I think it's like with a Q or something like that. And he shows up, and he's essentially like a Mark Hamill-esque character, though he's more like what's his name, Han Solo there, Harrison Ford. Where he's like, I'm afraid to come back to it, and I kind of just thought I was done with the character.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of good stuff in it, but it doesn't, like, I don't know that there are going to be kids who understand all the references that are going into it. It literally just feels like it is targeted right at me. And when you talk about your Twitch marketing is mortgages and my Twitch marketing is exclusively the new show on Nickelodeon, you're feeding into that fear for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The second episode of it is Milo is apparently the world record holder on a video game, and then his score is beaten, so then he has to get it back. That's what the second episode is. Like, they're just doing all sorts of stuff that, like, hyper relatable to my situations in life. I mean, we met Kevin Smith that one time and thought he stole our idea, but it turned out to be based on a 1930s French novel.
Yeah, I will say that again, the little bits that I have seen of it give me a very I was gonna say, I guess pun intended, warped view on this show. But the idea that like there's a lot of really blunt old tropes that I don't love about like her showing up and him like quizzing her on her nerd knowledge because he just can't believe that she belongs in that comic shop with him, and like, and then she is able to, you know, blow him away, which is great and all, but like some of the Mary Sue aspects of this the other female character, again, all from what I'm now gathering is probably just the first episode,
right?
So maybe,
which I am 100% convinced they showed it as a sneak peek. It wasn't even a premiere. It was a sneak peek of Warped, and that's where they showed the first episode. And I have looked for the first episode. You can buy it on Verizon. That's the only place that I could pay to own the episode for $3 through Verizon's On Demand. I can't locate it anywhere else. And it really feels like one of those situations where, like, we wanted to air the pilot because we wanted to show that Ruby had not always worked at Warped. Because it's kind of important, the fact that she's new there. Because her being new to Milo's life is really changing his sort of story. But now that I think about it, in sort of that Manic Pixie Dream Girl sort of way, where like he has more confidence in himself because Ruby inspired me to. Which is not great storytelling.
Yeah,
kind
the only
of an
reason I've
outdated
improved
trope.
the only reason I've improved my life is because of this one person in it, and it's like, there just seems to be some very low level elements to it. That being said, I don't expect much more from a Nickelodeon show. Like I you know, like besides maybe an iCarly, because that was Nickelodeon, right? I can't really think of another one that has really moved the dial in any meaningful way in terms of like progressive children's entertainment. Unlike, say, like Disney, where time and again you were getting, you know, all of these different shows from them. Andy Mack being the biggest example, but even Liv and Maddie had some very open stuff in it that was very progressive, and you know, that idea that like you are hearing all the time that Disney is at least trying. Whether or not it's working, that's a whole other conversation. Nickelodeon, I never even hear that conversation. I don't I don't hear about them like going out of their way in any meaningful way. And like famously, they also have a lot of really shit scandals with their children's television and the ways in which their young actors and actresses have been treated over the years and stuff too. So that also doesn't help, right? Like,
yeah, it's it doesn't feel like it might be the best place to work, but I'm I feel it's sort of like a train wreck. I can't bring myself to look away, and it really is like I still have the premiere episode on my DVR, and my father's like, "Can I erase it?" And I'm like, "You can erase everything but that first one because I'm convinced that they are doing everything in their power to undo so much that has happened in it." And as I rewatch it later, like there's a new owner by the third episode to write off who the owner was in the first episode. And with the new owner, the shop changes kind of completely. Like, so it's still a comic book shop, but the first owner was like a former child star. So really he just had the comic book shop so that he could sort of be noticed by like potential fans. Like it felt kind of gross, like the whole reason why he did it. And the new owner, he's not that, but he's just absurdly wealthy. Like, that's the thing. So it does bring in, like, nice stuff. Like, in that 6th episode, the B storyline is, how come Ruby and Milo are always doing stuff? Harley and Darby are normal people. We can have stuff going on. So they develop an idea for pizza pants, which are pants that you can put your pizza in to keep your pizza warm while you're doing things.
Not pants made out of pizza.
No, not pants made out of pizza. They are specifically pants for keeping your pizza in the pockets while you're active. They keep the pizza at a piping hot 150 degrees Fahrenheit. How could this go wrong? And then they're like, so we got a really good design on this, but we need the startup capital to make, to actually create this. And then in walks the owner and he's like, man, I just got money to blow today. And they're like, hey. And he ends up giving them like $5,000 to make prototype pizza pants, which is fun, right? Like, that's the type of stuff that you need to motivate along shows. And I don't think the original owner could have done something like that. But also it's not great that he's like, man, I came up with all these ideas, and if I'd have sued, I'd be richer than I already am. It's like, you're getting dangerously close to me wanting to take out the fork and knife and condiments there.
Man, yeah, it looks like a weird show, and like I said, I was very thrown by this one character that appears in all these clips that I 100% would have believed if she said she was from the planet Orc. I would have been like, okay, like.
And again, I think that might be the final, like, sort of everything about it, in terms of why they're trying to erase the pilot, is that they're moving away from her being an alien. I think they want to ground the fact that she's just kind of, and she's not even odd or anything like that. She's just confident, and she has a sort of distinct voice, is what I will call it. And it does sort of sound like the girl with pink eyes voice, to reference a biannual ham sandwich song. So, like, one person got that reference.
No, the bigger bit for me is, like, there's an entire moment where she, like, picks up a coffee mug and, like, gives it like a British accent and talks to it for like 2 minutes, and like you just are watching it go on, and I'm spending the entire time thinking like this is somebody that has studied like some like Robin Williams style comedy, and not enough people do that anymore. You know what I mean? Like, that's not really a bit, because like there's very few people that could pull it off, right? So it was just really interesting to see somebody doing that kind of comedy on a kid's show at this point, and being like, all right, like I don't have any connection to this character, so maybe this is normal for the show.
I mean, yeah, when it stands out in that one moment with her, I can understand the Robin Williams-esque nature of understanding for that scene. But really, it just kind of feels like Jess from New Girl. Because that was her, like, quirky, adorkable way of living. I'm so mad at myself for saying adorkable. I hate
You're using
that
the
word.
buzzwords, though, right? Like, and that's the problem. The fact that there are these, like, marketing buzzwords for what we're talking about is exactly the issue. It's like, it doesn't seem like there's anything going on in these characters right now, from the little that I've seen, that make me excited to see it go anywhere, because I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, well, the real thing is that in that second episode where Milo's like, I just lost the record, whatever. But then the guy who took the record ends up coming into the shop to be like, oh, yeah, you're the one I took the record from. And then she stands up and she's like, you know what? He can take the record back from you, and he's going to do it live here on Friday at 3 p.m. And he's like, all right, you're on. And then the guy leaves and he goes, what just happened? And that's where what I consider the iconic part of the marketing is her looking at the screen and going, Ruby happened. And it's just like, that's just confidence. But every time I saw that in a commercial, I thought that Ruby did something, and it was somebody else who was saying, Ruby happened.
Just down the barrel. Oh my God.
But just like total Devon Decker moment of like, Ruby happened. Devon Decker. Yeah,
all right,
so
Zach.
Warped. That's the thing. All right, Zach. Did you just call me Zach? Oh, Zach Morris. I get it.
Yep.
I understand the reference. Did you know, going back to Coventry High School, so because I brought it up, that Dennis Haskins, the actor who played Mr. Belding on Saved by the Bell, signed a photo to Coventry High School because when he was at URI, I asked him to sign a picture for my principal because, quote from me, we have a Zach Belding relationship. And so he's like, hold on a second. This one is for Coventry High School. It's a gift. You don't need to pay for this one. So I was like buying it as like sort of a joke gift for that principal to kind of be an asshole to him. And then he's like, no, here's a nice one too for your actual high school. And it is in the trophy case in the lobby of Coventry High School from the last time I checked, which is 2014.
Nice.
So, it's fun to think about how TV show affects us. And then, I don't know. Yeah, Zach Morris makes sense, Siege, and I understand the reference there. I want to talk about video games.
Okay.
Will you let me talk about some video games?
Yeah.
Okay, so where are you in video games right now before I talk on my thing?
I've been just diving into some of the Nintendo stuff that came out and trying to set up and figure out what I'm excited about and what I'm not. There was a lot of announcements from that Nintendo Direct. What was it, a week ago Friday now?
It was a Thursday announcement, so it's been, let's say, 13 days.
Yeah. So yeah. But just parsing through a lot of the stuff that was brought up and parsing through what matters. So much of what was said during that was just stuff that either like we already knew about or like is cool, but like doesn't change the way I live my life in any way. Like it's just really weird. Like there was nothing that was really like, mark your calendars. This is happening this date. We officially, like nothing like a Breath of the Wild 2 announcement or anything like that, Or as you pointed out, the Majora's Mask announcement being completely buried by the fact that it's coming out the same day as Elden Ring.
Yeah, and it really does feel like we know we don't have Elden Ring on Switch, but Majora's Mask? And then my response to that is, does Ocarina of Time run well yet?
Does it work yet? Does the whole emulating N64 games work yet? Yeah, but like tied up in that is the idea that the Mario Kart announcement about the expansion pack and all that, the booster stuff, is apparently if you have access to the N64 stuff, you're going to get access to that too. Like
if you have the expansion pass, if you have the Nintendo Switch Online Plus, basically.
Right. Then you're going to get all the Mario Kart stuff regardless, right?
Yeah, that is the selling point there.
So then, well, my thinking is, well, then why don't I just buy the expansion pass and just get access to this stuff? Like, yeah, it might be kind of broke, and that's probably exactly what they want me to think, right? Is rather than spend the money on just the booster pass for Mario Kart, I could put that money towards this and get access to some other stuff, right?
I mean, that's exactly what they tried to do with the Animal Crossing thing. That's going to be their sort of incentive to go with the expansion pass on the Nintendo Switch Online. If you want the Animal Crossing expansion DLC anyway, why not get this? And also get some janky N64 games and literally every Sega Genesis game that is available on the market to purchase right now. For less. And for me, it's one of those things where, honestly, the Nintendo Switch Online experience is still not great. It's still not there for me. And I have to have the one that I currently have, right? I have the base one. We're on a family plan, like the four of us share it, and it works out. I don't mind doing that. The price is right. If you're curious about the Nintendo Switch Online, the $20 for the single, find some friends, go in for the $35. You get 7 accounts. I don't think most people have 7 friends. Even the group in How I Met Your Father could each have their own account on the Nintendo Switch Online with a family plan.
Yeah, and then share that one with the rotating boyfriend or girlfriend of the week, the last one. But the idea though, that like you're saying, like that incentive to kind of purchase this is that in addition to this, you're always going to get this anyway. Why not just spend the money here and get this instead? And I think like the thing I will say is about how the Nintendo Online stuff isn't always great, because you're not wrong about that. We've had plenty of experiences where it sucked. Mario Golf is still really janky for me whenever I try playing with people. The 2 games I will point out that it's always kind of worked really well on, and actually kind of it pisses me off that it works as well here and doesn't anywhere else, are Mario Kart and Animal Crossing. like the visiting people's islands on Animal Crossing, because of the fact that there's usually just like one load to go in and out. Like you're not moving between place to place. You're not changing tracks, as it were. You're not doing all this sort of stuff. Like I think that benefits it in a lot of ways. So that always works really well for me. And then with Mario Kart, I was literally just playing online yesterday because with the announcements of the Mario Kart stuff, I got the itch to play again, and that's the way that I was doing it for a half an hour without issue, like going between groups and tracks without issue. So like the two places where it's always worked have been that. So I'll give them that, and I will say that I kind of like the idea that they're trying to build up. Like, yeah, we understand that the N64 stuff, which we announced as kind of the selling part to this whole expansion pass thing, isn't quite living up to what we promised. So in addition to that, here's all this other stuff that's going to be tied to it. That makes me actually feel a little bit better about the price. Not so great that I feel like it's worth it yet, but definitely see where there's much more value in it than we once thought when it was just the N64 stuff, and the N64 stuff all was broken.
I guess the only thing that makes me nervous about it now is, are those tracks going to be something that is downloaded to my Switch, or are they always going to be an online access event?
I know that there's a release of Kingdom Hearts that they're going to do. That's going to be just basically Kingdom Hearts, the full package. But the deal with it is, because that is so much content, is it is all cloud-based. And they say that on the packaging. Like, they're not hiding that. Like,
that actually came out 2 weeks ago. It came out the Friday after the Nintendo Direct that we're talking about.
So it's so it's a thing that they are definitely experimenting with, right? That idea that it's going to be just cloud-based because there's just not enough room on people's systems, on the cart, like all that sort of stuff. And I gotta say, I think it's going to be the bigger question is, obviously, and I think we all know the answer to this, is that if I don't buy the expansion pass, but instead if I don't buy the Mario Kart specific DLC, and instead get the expansion pass and it has that stuff included, if I stop paying for the expansion pass, I'm going to lose access to those, right? Like, you're just gonna. Whereas if I just bought them outright, I just own them. And in that situation, it might be a downloadable thing. But I think if you're just using the expansion pass, it's probably all cloud-based.
Yeah, that's what I need to know, though. I need to know, when I download the DLC, is it something that I am downloading to my Switch so that if I'm out in the world and I don't have a Wi-Fi connection, I can play those new courses as well? Or is it essentially I'm paying $25 for an unlock key to be able to access these new tracks?
I think you might be downloading them only because, and you're right, Nintendo needs to be the ones to just explain this, but the reason that I thought that you were downloading them is that you can play them with other people, that even if they don't own the expansion. That was part of the announcement, is they said that if you own it and your friend doesn't, that's okay, your friend can still play with you on your tracks. And so I think that means you'd have to have them downloaded, because basically they're saying that you can use the local Wi-Fi connection to play those things, and that means they have to be reading it off of your system, because I don't think it's going to be filtered through, like, your streaming to somebody else's device. That would just be a nightmare scenario for Nintendo, who hasn't even figured out how to stream to the main device.
It would be a nightmare scenario for Nintendo that Nintendo is currently doing on things like Super Mario Maker. It's a nightmare scenario that Nintendo is currently using.
Well, but even on Mario Maker, like, your stuff is on your thing, right?
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know if it's the same. Yeah, I don't know if that's a 1-to-1. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. And like I said before, like, you were totally correct. Nintendo needs to clarify this stuff. I'm just kind of going off of what makes the most sense to my limited understanding of how all of this stuff streams and works. Is I just don't see that the benefit to them having all of that stuff up on a cloud and then telling you to try connecting to somebody else's device on top of that just sounds miserable to me.
Yeah. I mean, the ideal for me is to wait until all of the tracks are announced and hope that they release another physical version that has all of the tracks on that cart. That is what I really want. I know that it's like 3 years
2 years
from now.
down the line.
Like,
yeah. Just to be clear, they are also, like, I want to make sure that I'm giving them credit where it's due, because there is a lot of places where they're faltering, and I don't want it to sound like we're just shitting all over Nintendo like we usually do. I like there's a lot of stuff that they have been very forward with in all of this, and one of those things was, like, right now the release date, like the placeholder release date on anything besides the first expansion is like Christmas 2023. So, like, if you're waiting for all of them to be released and then for Nintendo to get off their ass and release a copy that has it all included, you're going to be waiting till their next system, basically.
Right. But that's really what I want it to be, because I don't want it to be one of these situations where I'm willing to pay the $25 for the DLC.
Yeah.
I don't want to get the expansion pass because I really don't want to. That's the other thing about it, is if I were like, okay, so if I upgrade to the expansion pass, it's $25. So instead of just getting the DLC, I'll get the Animal Crossing stuff, I'll get the Nintendo 64, and I'll get the Genesis, right? And on paper, that makes sense. But I don't want to send that message to Nintendo. And this is me personally as a consumer who doesn't want to send the message that I see any value in getting the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pass.
Yeah.
I don't want, I'd rather buy the DLC and show them, sell me DLC that I care about and I'll buy that DLC. I mean, I don't ideally want to do that either. I want another release that has everything on the cart because I don't want them to take down those extra tracks. I don't want them to take down that server and then I lose it. Because the other thing that's going on right now is that Wii U and 3DS games, that's just going to stop. You're going to stop being able to buy and play those games in 2023. So, Siege?
Like, you're not going to be able to download them, or if they are cloud-based, there's going to be no server to paying for the licensing, which means you won't be able to play certain games. Yeah, I
can't play Bionic Commando 2 anymore. The Rearmed 2, I can't play it because Capcom made you be online in order to ping the server before you could play the game, and that server doesn't exist anymore. And that sucks. There's no other word about it. That sucks. Ghostbusters, the video game, the original 2009 release, I can't do the multiplayer anymore. And the multiplayer is one of the best parts about that game.
Yeah.
So it's just, I've been burned too many times before by things that only exist in the cloud related to video games. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
And it's just
so angry. You're just going to start eating your microphone.
No, I'm moving my hands. I'm very animated right now. That's just that situation, which I'm going to use, to jump into the game that is currently my game of the year for 2022. It is February. We are 4 sleeps away from Elden Ring being out and being the game that everybody thinks is going to solve every problem for the world. And I found a game that I almost went in on it for early access, and then I decided, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to wait till it is released as a complete and full game. And that happened on Valentine's Day, and that game is called Infernax, and luckily, it's part of Game Pass, which, I've been talking about all this digital and lack of ownership stuff. Being able to play Infernax as part of my Game Pass subscription, and with my new Game Pass goal for 2022 of I'm going to beat 1 game a month on Game Pass, so then it makes the $16 that I pay for it is recouped, right?
Yeah.
And if anything more than that, I'm getting free games that way, right? It's not like Stadia, or I'm just committed to paying for Stadia, even if I don't use it. I just love throwing my money into that money sink.
Don't worry, that's going to close up soon anyway. But yeah.
But I want to make sure that I'm giving Google some money while I can, right? I don't want to get accused of not supporting Google.
Just unlock that Bluetooth on your way out the door. Google,
that's
please.
all I need them to do.
Before you shut down Stadia, just unlock Bluetooth on the controller before you go.
It's such a good controller. I love the Stadia controller. But yeah, so I got to play Infernax on Game Pass, and it's so good that when Limited Run does a physical version of it, and they've already said that we're going to do a physical release through Limited Run, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get a physical version of Infernax so that I can have that, that tangible thing, that protected copy that should forever work until the hardware stops working, right?
Right.
And that's because I got to play it on Game Pass. But let me tell you, Infernax is one of these games that the more I play it, it just makes me happier and happier. And so basically what Infernax is, in the easiest term, it's if Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, and Castlevania 2, Belmont's Revenge, got freaky and had a baby that only inherited the good parts of their DNA. Somewhere out there is the Danny DeVito version of Infernax, and I feel bad for that version of Infernax. But the Arnold Schwarzenegger version of Infernax is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
So you're just like a knight who came back from the Crusades, and while you were gone, an evil tome came and has infected your homeland with zombies. So it's basic Castlevania. You walk in, jump in, attacking. You use a mace instead of a whip, and what I really dig about the game is that there's a morality system, but the morality system is not right up in your face. It's buried deep within the code. So you don't find
Yeah.
out if you're good or bad until like the end of the game where you find out how you did.
So I killed a dude right in the beginning, and I don't know if it was the right choice, but it felt like the right choice in the moment. And I've done other good things, like I've dropped money in the
You've
coin
been
purse
playing
and things like
Infernax?
that.
That makes me so happy. Thank you,
You
Steve.
asked me to.
I asked you to, but then I'm also nervous with like these old school games. And I have a confession about Infernax, but we'll save that till the big reveal moment of the game. But yeah, you killed that guy in the beginning. I spared that guy in the beginning, but I'm fairly certain, having beaten the game twice so far in the 3 days since I've played it,
Yeah.
since I started playing it, that if you kill that guy, that is automatically setting you down the path of evil because of
Nice.
the way that people talk about it.
Yeah.
And like, there's one achievement for begin down the path of evil but finish good. And like, I don't
Okay.
even know what that is. But like, my next playthrough of the game, I did a good playthrough and an ultimate good playthrough, which actually really wasn't that difficult because I there was just one choice that I hadn't made yet, and honestly, that one pushed me to the ultimate good, so I was able to take my existing game file and make it an ultimate good game file. That was lucky. I'm just gonna be honest. That doesn't happen a lot of times in choice-based games like this. And I'm very excited to go through and do the evil stuff because I've seen glimpses of it because eventually there's a skeleton that you can choose to kill or spare. And I spared him because he could talk, right? He's not one of these
Yeah.
mindless monsters like everything else. And I'm like, yeah, he can talk. You say he's not going to hurt anybody. That was the wrong choice. Spoilers for Infernax. Because he committed a bunch of murders. And then he rewarded me by turning my crow familiar into a demon.
Oh man.
And I've
Yeah.
seen that like there are ways that almost every magic spell can be upgraded to either be evil or good, and that's interesting to me as something that's going to exist in this game.
So one of the other things I should definitely bring up is the game has two modes. It has a hardcore mode and then it has a casual mode. And I'm definitely playing casual for this game for me. Like it's not the kind of game that I would not be able to be having fun and getting to the parts that I'm getting to if I was not playing casually, right? Like, and that's just part of it. So the other element to this game that I think is really rad is not just like some of the fun like gameplay like hidden mechanic stuff, but some of the stuff that's just right on the surface. Like I think some of the artwork is really interesting and
Gorgeous.
really fun. Like
Gorgeous.
it's almost cartoonish in some places, but like not cartoonish to the point where it pulls you out of it. It allows for a style and it allows for a level of violence that would otherwise be kind of grotesque, right? Like in a lot of ways, it is because of its particular art style. Yes, it definitely has like a Zelda Castlevania vibe to it. But like I said, when you first run into that guy and it's just like, do you want to kill or spare him? And like, you know, the artwork is pretty gory and pretty much intense. Like this guy's infected with something, and I know that there's monsters about. So like he's like, please kill me. So I just killed him, and then all of a sudden you're you're greeted with this pixel art shot of just like macing this dude's face in, and like it is it is it's like watching oh man, what's the Viking show that was on that had like one episode on Adult Swim or
Oh,
Primal or
Corn
something
the
like that. Like
Barbarian.
yeah,
Oh God,
there's
Corn the
just
Barbarian. We're basically the only two members of the Corn the Barbarian fan club. That's
you
not
know,
true. There are
but
other people who remember it, but I remember watching that show in your house for
yeah,
the
man.
first
But
time.
there's just like there's like that level of like heavy metal or Conan the Barbarian like when like comics and stuff like that, just some just gross shit that just happens. And you know, and the monsters all look really good, and the different portraits for the characters when they speak are all beautiful too. So there's also just some surface level stuff that's just fucking rad on top of all of it. Like I get the feeling that there's a lot of deeper stuff going on underneath, but they do just enough surface level stuff to still keep you kind of interested that I feel like I think I know. So like the upgrade system, right? It's
Hmm.
not on it's not laid out like perfectly clear to you like this is exactly what you need to do in order to get to this type of build. But I'm given enough information about what different things do where I feel like, okay, like I'm going to lean into magic and so I need to make sure that this is what I'm aiming for and things like that. It's just enough information so that I feel like I'm getting it. I feel smart. And then I'm sure like you're saying all of this stuff about like a morality thing underneath, had no idea that that was even part of what was going on yet, right? And I kind of got that idea with the choices in front of me. Again, like I feel like I figured that out, but like having that confirmed is good because now it knows that I should be taking it seriously when it comes to those moments of choice.
Yeah, when you find out that the ultimate section of it, because I beat the game on good mode, and they're like, and then you unlock books in the library, which is just sort of
Mm,
like an extra section in the menu, and then reading it tells you about the Necronomicon, and that the only way to get that is to be an ultimate force for good or an ultimate force for evil. And then
right.
like I went and I talked to everybody, and I had missed a mission where he's like, if you can fight off the cultists from taking our relic in our cathedral, that'd be a big help. And then that opened up a whole chain of quests. And then by the end of it, I had the Necronomicon, the evil book, in my hand. And that is what made me ultimate good because I had killed the guy who was using it to summon all the evil. And then in
Nice.
having that ultimate good, going to the final boss again, it opened up a whole like final dungeon that I didn't know existed beforehand. So it was
Nice.
just like really cool, that whole thing. And I'm excited to go back and play it through as evil and ultimate evil because there are also a lot of choices where like it's pretty obvious that you're going to be a bad guy if you do this. Like there's one guy who talks in staccato, which it's really impressive that they indicate to you that he's speaking with a staccato like timbre and tempo in written text. That
Yeah.
impresses me. That you can read that way. And he's like, go blow up the dam. And I'm like, no, I'm never gonna blow up the dam. Like, these people need the dam. What the fuck are you talking about? And he turned into a bunch of demons. And I had to fight him. And so, like, oh, okay, that's a thing that just exists. So next time through, yeah, I'm gonna blow up the dam. Also, you unlock like the name thing where if you name your character a different thing, you get different modes. And there's at least a magic mode that I'm aware of where
Yeah.
you only use magic. So I'm very into this game that has captured my mind. But you talk about the two modes, and that's classic mode and casual mode. There is a hardcore mode, and that's how Devon Decker played the game because I'm an idiot. I'm going to say that it's because I'm an idiot, and I just didn't look. I didn't notice until the third castle, right? And they're called castles, which is why the Castlevania stuff comes in. But I think why people are calling it Zelda 2-esque, because it's not really Zelda 2-esque, aside from the fact that you upgrade power, health, and mana, and
Yeah.
up to level 7, which is the highest, which is very reminiscent of Zelda 2. But the game, for all intent and purposes, feels like a modern day remake of Belmont's Revenge. From
Mm,
the art style, the way that you have to talk to people to understand how to solve puzzles in the world. Like,
right,
it
right.
feels more like that than Zelda 2. Because it feels like the side scroll sections of Zelda 2, but a part of Zelda 2 that people just kind of neglect to talk about is the fact that the overworld exploration and opening new ways to traverse the overworld is such a big part of that game. Zelda 2 is a great game. It needs a quality of life like remaster to come out so
Right.
that, because the biggest issue with that game is that if you die anywhere in the world, you start back at the Zelda's bedside.
Right.
So like,
Ugh.
so no matter what, until the final dungeon, because like I've been informing people of this all the time. If you die in the final palace, if you continue, you start outside of that palace, which is really nice. But there's no way to indicate that. So a lot of people, they die and they quit, and then they end up having to go back to that palace. I'm here to tell you that if you continue at the palace, you stay at the palace. Because a lot of people hate that final palace, and more for the walk to it than the actual challenge on display in there. And
Yeah.
it's, yeah, no, you can continue and you can learn it the way that every palace in that game should be. Every palace, when you die, you should start at the opening. Kind of like every Zelda game ever, where
Yeah. Where you're given those options throughout the world
Yeah.
of where to be. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little strange, but also it's Nintendo at the height of their we want to combat rentals by making our games as hard as fucking
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah. Nintendo hard, please. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
But yeah, so the Infernax stuff.
no.
So when you
I'd
say
like to
that you
talk.
were playing,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, we're talking about the same thing. When I say that I played on hardcore mode,
Yeah.
so you can buy lives in town, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that you could buy lives. The guys who offered to sell life, I thought it would just increase my health bar, and my health bar is being increased by the level up system. So I'm like, I'm fine with that. I don't need to spend my money on this. I want to spend my money on weapons and armor. So
Right.
then it's the third castle that I'm playing, and I look up at my HUD and I notice a little heart in the top left corner, and I'm like, oh, I bet those are what those guys are selling, are legitimately extra lives. And when you're playing on classic mode, you die, you go back to the last save point. And that's all you do. You don't retain money, you don't retain experience, you just go back to the last time you saved, which is like old video games, right? That's all you have
Right.
to go on. There's no auto saves whenever you transition screens or anything like that. And I've watched people stream it since I've beaten it, and those lives, they just start you at the room that you died in. And I never did that. Once I realized it, and I'm like, well, I'm halfway through the game without using any of them. I'm going to finish the game without ever using a life. So that's what I did. I got through the first. I cleared the game on my good playthrough without ever using a potion.
Nice.
Because like at one moment, oh, that could probably be a trophy, right? And I'm not going to look at the trophies, but I'm just going to, I never used the potion because I'm not using life. So if I die, I die. It helped me learn the levels. So that was good, right? Like it actually made it feel like a Nintendo hard experience where if I keep playing, this is the stuff that's going to happen. But then by the time I got to the final castle, that final castle like is 3 boss fights in a row, and I'm like, I have to get a potion. Like this, the mechanic is built for you to drink a potion at some point. Even though I'm maxed out, it's just these characters occasionally do things that are going to hurt you no matter what. So I ended up, I will say I used a potion for my ultimate good playthrough, but even then it was like 1 potion that I used. I used an elixir. I'm not going to be like an asshole about it. I used an elixir, which also heals your mana. So I was able to use my heal spell 3 more times. Just being honest. But yeah, it's just, so I ended up doing it like that. So now like I watch these people who are playing on classic mode and they're like, cause I'm not a bitch, I'm not going to do casual mode, which also, that's a really toxic thing that I wish we would get past as like people who play video games being
Yes.
like, I'm better because I'm playing on this mode. Understand that those modes exist. First of all, it doesn't cheapen your experience if you're playing on classic mode to know that there's a mode so that other people can enjoy this game.
Yes.
And like even one step further in Infernax, there's an accessibility menu where you can legitimately change the code of the game like a game genie so that you are invincible, so that your jump is higher, so that you do more damage. Like, and it's just like, understand that you'll be modifying the code of the game
Yeah.
in order to do this. And I'm like, that's cool that that exists. I'm not going to touch it, but it's cool that it exists. That like
Well,
that level
and in
of
a lot of ways-
accessibility is there.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, like that's been the secret on PC gaming for decades. Is like the real reason that there are a lot of people out there that go to PC gaming and can't ever look back is because the amount of control that you can then have over the game because of things like that becomes insane. The experience of playing Stardew Valley on my computer versus any of the consoles that I own it on, or even at this point, I think it's on a couple of mobile devices in our house, it's a completely different video game.
Yeah.
Because there are all of these ways in which you can go in and you can make mods and alterations to the game and improve your quality of life or you know, fuck your game up if you really want to, like that kind of thing. And so like it's hard for me sometimes to kind of get my ass moving in a Stardew Valley game on a different device now that I've been playing it on PC for so long, because I don't have the ability to pop in and give myself $1 million to start off with so that I can go out and buy like a nice rug for my house and like paintings to put up on the wall and things like that. I'm not even using it as like pay to play. Like I'm not even using it to move forward in the game at all. It's just like I need to make my house look a little bit cuter so that I have something nice to come home to at night. I forgot that the old house is just a fucking fireplace and a bed. You know, so that kind of
sounds
stuff.
like heaven to me.
but the idea being that is such a common tactic in PC gaming that you're now finding people in straight up console games providing that level of service for people is really cool.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. And I like that it's just part of the game. It's not purchasing a mod like with Skyrim and how they tried to do it. Though, again,
Yeah.
that's a whole different thing talking about Bethesda. But it's just one of those situations where the large amount of accessibility has not changed my enjoyment of this game, has not changed the way that I interact with this game. The other thing I did to play on hardcore mode, I'm Devon Decker, right? I'm still Devon Decker. That happens. If I get into a situation where I am where I'm supposed to be before I'm supposed to be there, I'm going to finish that situation. That's how I play video games. It's the wrong way to play video games. I understand that. But I ended up finding the final castle, well, the fifth castle, before the fourth castle. And it's real big guys to fight. But the real thing is, they legitimately put in like an intelligence check. That's what you would call it, but it's not really that. It's more like an item check to make sure that you have all of the items that are required to actually traverse within this dungeon.
Okay.
And so the first one is actually getting to the second half of the dungeon. You need to have the dash attack, which is in the game, and I didn't have it, but I was able to just make the jump that they require you to have the dash technique by damage boosting onto the spikes and then jumping from the furthest part and then activating my double jump. Like, with one pixel, I'd be able to land and then continue. And I really am impressed with, I believe it's Arcade, Big Arcade are the people who made this game. And, like, the next room has a secondary check to make sure that you have the dash. But again, I just damage boosted through it and was able to get to the boss of that level.
Nice.
Without having that technique. And, like, I beat it without going to get the technique. And I'm just like, yeah, that was me being a jerk. And then also come to find out I should have explored more once I had the double jump, because there's someone who gives you the teleportation spell, which allows you to go to any save point that you've previously visited. And like, I would have felt okay leaving the fifth castle once I found like this impossible jump by all accounts.
Right.
And the real thing about it that sucked is, because I'm playing on classic mode, if I get a key, I'd really like to save beforehand. I don't want to keep going into the dungeon without a save, because I'll have to redo everything that I did.
Right.
And sometimes it's even harder going back to get to the entrance of the level, just because of the way that a lot of the puzzles, the platforming puzzles, are built to be one way only. Like, you're not meant to get back. So finding out and solving that whole thing, because I don't have life, so if I die, I'm done and I need to redo everything, it added this whole other level of like challenge and excitement and thrill to this game. I absolutely loved it. And like everything I got, there was one moment where I'm like, I'm afraid this game is going to biff it. And that was with this dash attack that I had already proved I kind of didn't need by being able to beat the fifth stage without it. Yeah. And I'm like, because there's a down and attack thing, right? And I'm like, okay, so down attack is a thing. Down and up is a thing. What is the dash going to be? What is the dash going to be? And is it going to completely change the way that I feel about this game's control scheme? Because those other two felt so natural, and I was afraid that it'd be like a double tap to dash, or like forward and attack. And then like, oh, that means I'm going to have to drop the control pad every time I want to attack going forward. Right? No, they saw that I would be upset by that. Or probably everybody. They were smart enough so that the dash attack is a charge. You charge your attack and then you dash. And does it still fuck me over sometimes? Yes. Yes, it does. Because when I do the double jump, you have to use the attack button. And like by nature, I just got used to holding it. And then by the time I'm coming down from that double jump, I'll have charged a dash, and then I'll dash off of the ledge that I'm trying to land on.
Oops. Yeah.
But just really, really good. I haven't been this excited about a game since River City Girls. Like, there's just so many references to other games of the style. You come across, like, do you know about the tornado in Castlevania 2? where you
Hmm.
need to kneel in a certain place for 10 seconds and then a tornado comes.
Right, right.
There's a screen that mimics that screen. And when you find a siege, you want to try kneeling there for 10 seconds, see what happens.
Okay. Excellent.
It's a good time. Apparently the Konami code does something somewhere in the game. I haven't been able to find it yet, but I've heard references to it. And I
Yeah.
have found in the Backer Mausoleum, there's a Game Genie-esque thing called Game Wizard. And when I beat the game on the with the good ending, it gave me a Game Wizard code that gave me a jetpack. And that jetpack didn't still kept it as classic mode. It just allows me, like, some of the harder jumps, I can just jetpack over them.
Nice.
So, and it's nice that it's a reward, and it's nice that it doesn't, like, disable achievements or anything like that. What it does is it adds replayability after you finished the game.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what I like, because that's going to get me coming back to your game. And I bring up River City Girls because another game that I came out this week that I played was River City Girls Zero. Because I'm a
Yeah,
shill.
so
I'm a
this
corporate
is,
shill.
but this is the one that is a re-release remake of a game that was available outside of the country. It's just new to us, right?
Yeah.
Like,
So
am I?
I've talked about the game before on this series, like when River City Girls came out. I think like the April afterwards. So it's some episode in April 2019, 2020, where I found this game and played through a translation of it. Neketsu Hai Kunio no Banka is the original title of it. And now it
Okay.
has an official English translation released in America, or released in the West, as they say. And it's called River City Girls Zero, down to the fact that on Game FAQs, River City Girls Zero is a Super Nintendo game now. And it really just collects all of the stuff that was there from the Ketsuhai Kunio no Banka, which is interesting. And I'm happy that I get to play this game with Dale. That's the big thing of it, right? I bought it on Switch because they're like, there's new intro video and all sorts of stuff. The stuff that's new about this game is there's a new anime opening that is available on YouTube. So if you're only doing it for the anime opening, that's there. There's an intro scene and there's an outro scene. And the intro scene is really good. The outro scene seems to be like the people didn't actually play the game.
Oops.
Spoilers for River City Girls Zero at this moment. In the game, the girls who would be the heroes in River City Girls, the original River City Girls, Masako and Kyoko, at the end of the 5th stage, they're shot by the big bad, and you no longer get to play as them. And then once you finally beat him, you're told that they're going to be okay. And that's the end of the game, right? So they live. Now, this led to me and Dale joking that they're in comas, and that is why River City Girls is happening, and why
Right.
it's all like the technology is so much different, and time hasn't really moved from 1994 to now.
Right, right.
Is that they're stuck in a coma, and it's just, that's like our personal headcanon. If it ends up being real, well, I might have to launch honey and blue corn chips at them, a la the plagiarized episode of Warped, and how they dealt with Kevin Smith. Sort of spoilers. That's not 100% what happens. So then, in River City Girls Zero, all of that happens, but like one of the big parts of this game, so spoilers for a game that just came out, that is a re-release of a 1994 game that I believe I've already talked about the end of it. In it, Kunio goes to jail for a hit and run, and then it is eventually revealed that the person who committed the hit and run was his twin brother that he never knew existed,
Okay, right, right.
named Ken. So then you play through the game, and eventually you come to the fight with Ken. Once you beat Ken, he admits, no, I'm not actually your brother. We just kind of look similar. So Sabu adopted me, hoping to use me to discredit you so he could take over the town.
Right.
That's his whole plan. So when Sabu finds out that Ken failed, he just outright shoots him, and Ken dies. Like, it's like a pretty dramatic little moment where Ken dies. And you almost feel bad for him until you remember that, oh no, he actually did hit somebody and kill them with a motorcycle. Like, that's
Right.
the thing that he did. So, like, this moment where I just got wrapped up in things outside of my control, you kind of feel for him until, like, you take that second to think about it. And then you go into the fight with Sabu, And when you beat Sabu, the final line from Kunio is, say hello to Ken when you see him in hell. So it's very heavily implied that you have killed Sabu as well. And then to like just put everything in perspective, you're fighting in a burning down house where a self-destruct bomb has gone off, and it's implied that more are going to go off. And then you stand in the distance as the house collapses into flame. So even if Sabu were alive, he probably isn't alive anymore.
They seem to go out of their way to definitely imply that he is not around anymore, for sure. Yeah.
And then also you get to River City Girls, and they believe that they're going to get to Sabu, and then it turns out that they're fighting his daughter, Sabuko, because Sabu's not around. And why would Sabu be around? He's dead. He died many years ago.
Right.
So then after you finish the game, and you have to watch through the very long Japanese text-only credits for the original game before you get the outro scene where they're like, did we really get shot? And then the question, I don't know how video game logic works, which is kind of where I think my coma thing has probably gone. Or, you know, they could feed off of the fact that they don't remember if they were shot or not, which if you're in a shared dream state due to a coma-like atmosphere, that seems like how things would work, right? That seems like how things would happen in your mind.
We're already in ridiculous territory, but okay.
But then Kyoko questions, where was Sabuko? I thought she was Sabu's daughter, not Ken. And then also Sabu and Ken, they're just going to let us get away with what we did in that game. And it's like, well, they're dead. You guys just played the game and you saw that both of them died. So it just seems like weird that they talk about Ken and Sabu potentially being a threat before the to be continued at the end of that sequence. When playing the game, I just watched both of them die.
Yeah, there's a weird meta level of acknowledging that it's a video game, so these events occurred, and these events occurred, but it's like they must be okay because it was just a game, right? Like they're just actors in a play, so obviously they're not dead. But then if they're just actors in a play, then they might not care about the events of the play then, right? Like it doesn't lean far enough in that direction for me. Like if you're going to act as if what you just did was not reality, then you can't be surprised that they're still angry, right? This is starting to get into some weird Mario territories for me. Like why is it cool that Bowser gets to come and play golf with them?
This is a really
weird world that they have built for these characters to be in.
Yeah, it's really strange to me, because I'm first of all, it's the fact that they go to the pawn shop and Skullmageddon from Double Dragon Neon sold them a Super Nintendo and a copy of Neketsu High Kunio no Banka. So they're going to sit and play that game.
Right.
Which their character's in.
Right.
It's just... okay, I'm okay with that, and it has a little nice jab about, yeah, that's the thing now, retro is cool again. They just slap on a new theme song and a new intro, and they act like it's a new game. So oh, you got fucked into giving us $15, Devon, and I'm like, yeah, you know what, that was good though, you guys, it was solid writing right there, I'm not even mad about it. But then when stuff outwardly contradicts what I just saw happen, and then also what I just saw happen, Kyoko and Masako weren't there for, so it also kind of feeds into my thought process that maybe they are in a coma from the gunshot, and this is them remembering what happened leading up to it. I don't know. I almost expected the game to end once they got shot and not continue forward. And as much as that would be weird or
yeah. I think what's weird is registering a baseline in gaming writ large, not just Western gaming versus Eastern gaming, the idea of this being a Japanese game originally and all that stuff. You could definitely dig into how stories are conveyed and things like that, and how we don't really understand, have that background. So maybe there's something we're not understanding or something like that. But I think in general, in video games, I think that the baseline in video games seems to always be that story is the least important of the elements, shall we say, right? Of Aristotle.
I mean, I'm the first person to say that. I don't really care about story if a game is fun. In Fernax, I enjoy playing it. The story of it, when it all came to the head at the end, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm supposed to be stopping an invasion of zombies, but I got
Right.
that by fighting zombies this whole game. I don't.
Right, right. Yeah, no, but so that idea where when a game does care enough about story that it's impressive, like that's why we celebrate it as much as we do. And people get really caught up in, well, it's not the best story I've ever heard, and it's like, well, no, but in a medium, in an element like in an environment like video games, any story period is already elevating that experience for people. Then on top of that, you add to the fact that there is actually some like intelligent story going on here. That's a whole like that is gangbusters. So it's just I don't want to act like stories like video games are not a good medium for storytelling, and that we have not made huge improvements over the last 20, 30 years, and that there are not some phenomenally written games. There are. I bet that when Elden Ring drops later this week, like that's going to be a huge element for the community, is going to be the amount of story behind it, because this is the one that has like George R. R. Martin involved in the
Yeah,
story,
and
right?
that's the thing that I'm
Like,
most nervous about, because what I dig about Dark Souls, which
yeah,
is the other part of the DNA that's going into this cocktail to create Elden Ring, I like that the lore is there, but if I don't want to engage with the lore, I don't really have to. And it's not
yeah.
going to affect, like, if I were to read the lore and find out that this boss was weak against fire in the lore, I actually think that'd do me a disservice, as opposed to banging my head against beating this boss until I find out that it's weak against fire. So
And for
I'm,
the record, I am like the complete opposite.
yeah,
The
I know.
idea that I might be banging my head for 3 hours trying to figure out how to beat a guy, and then I pick up a book in the library and it tells me like his fire is his weakness. I love that shit. Like, good, give me that. Or even better, make it environmental. Show me another animal of that type, that creature, monster of that type, being burned severely, like in the background of a scene, and that really affecting them. And me thinking then when I get to this thing being like, oh, the last time I saw one of these things, somebody burned it and it worked really well. Let me try that. Boom, figuring out fire is its downside. Like environmental storytelling too is part
I
of this.
love
Not
environmental storytelling.
but not even every game can do that
Yeah.
too, right? Like, and that's okay. There are a lot of people that don't care about that sort of stuff. It's just that when it can be achieved, like it does get celebrated, and it is huge and it's important. And I'm hoping that with Elden Ring, just to kind of put a cap on that one, because until we play it, like I'm hoping that that's where they lean, because that's where Dark Souls really and Bloodborne and those games really kind of shine in terms of their lore, is the idea that you do not have to pay too close attention to what's being told to you or read too much of what's around you, because a lot of what you need to learn about what's going on you can get from the environment, that kind of stuff, right? Like, and that's great. And so hopefully Elden Ring leans into that. We'll see. As I said, with somebody like George R. R. Martin involved, like it doesn't sound like that's all that there's going to be, but we'll find out. But yeah, so like I think that there's just this idea that story is so low on the chain that when story is brought up, it's purposeful. And it sounds to me, with that kind of concept being in the water for video games writ large, is that's just not where the guys that do River City Girls care to be. They're much more about the style, the environment, and the controls, and like what you're doing, rather than what's going on. Just seems to be their kind of their concern. And in a lot of ways, it sounds like what they're doing is starting to poke fun at and kind of get pissed with maybe the people that are leaning too heavily into things like story. So like I know that a huge downside for you and Dale for one of the other ones was kind of finding out all this weird shit about like these girls like being actually like mistaken identity or whatever
Yeah,
it was,
like
and it
they
turns out
think
that they
that
were the bad guys the
they're
whole
the bad
time.
guys the whole time. Betrayal is
Right.
what we say, and then they
Right.
went and they
And that
changed it and gave a better ending. If you did the
right,
secret
right,
the
right.
secret boss, you got an ending where no, they are actually dating them.
Right,
So
but so like it offended you guys in a weird way, in which the way that the story went, and I think that it, like the reason that even got out, like and became the original ending of that game, is because they just didn't care. It just sounded like it was a cool tropey thing to put in here, that they were wrong the whole time. Ha, gotcha. Like it didn't even occur to them that this would be something that people playing it might actually like get hurt by in some way. And I say hurt, but like you know what I mean, like feel negatively towards it anyway.
right, and I will say, as much as I love River City Girls and playing through River City Girls Zero, I really liked being able to play through it like not on the computer and to play on it on a console and to feel like real about it. And the new translation that they did, which that's one other thing I do want to address before we end the discussion on this, but I want to wrap this thing up. I've watched videos with the guys who like work on the games, like the producers and stuff of the games, and they're really not great about the two characters of Misako and Kyoko.
Yeah.
Like they call them stupid. Like they're these dumb girls, they're these stupid girls. And that really like I know that offended Dale to like no end where she's like, I don't know if I want to play this game anymore because that's how the creators think about these girls who like for Dale, I think they represent something that like they're capable and they're able to solve this problem that
Yeah.
is presented to them. And even though they come up against all of like the first game, River City Girls, is them constantly coming up against obstacles and rather than giving up, like applying what they know about the world to try to solve the problem. Like they're these capable people who do what they can to fix the problem in their life. But then when you
Hmm.
hear that the people behind the game are like, yeah, these dumb girls who don't really understand what's going on, it's like, did you even play your game? Like, I understand that these are also like the producers, or one of them is credited as the tyrannical overlord in the credits, which I'm over that. I'm over people being credited as overlord in video game credits. There's one credited like that in Infernax as well. That's not clever. And especially what we now know about the video game industry,
Right.
distance yourself from calling yourself an overlord.
Yeah,
Like,
I view that shit as the I view that shit in credits and in interviews and stuff when people are labeled that way by those that work for them. It hits me as the strange as the same way in which somebody orders like a keyboard from China and it shows up with a note in it that says "Help me." Like that's all that says to me is somebody working for them really feels this way about them and snuck it in at the last second. It's like a cry for help from somebody working for them.
yeah, that's an interesting sort of situation there. There wasn't a note in your keyboard, was there, Siegen?
No, there was not. It was just the first thing in front of me, so you know.
Yeah, no, no, I get it. It's an old trope. It's an old, the robot chicken. I think it's the fifth season where all of the titles are like a message for
Yeah.
whoever. Like and that always kind of hits me the wrong way. But yeah, so then, but like when the tyrannical overlord like is talking about the game and talking about these characters being dumb, it's like I understand, but you're not the people who wrote the script to this game. You're not the people who created the art for this game. You're just like the managing producer on it, and like that's a disdain for your characters that I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah. Yeah, it's we like again, we are never privy to like exactly what's going on behind closed doors in these situations, and it really leads to some really kind of like understanding sometimes about what's going on because it could just be just like cute labeling between friends and ribbing and things like that. But like read the room, like you're saying, like what we now currently know about the way the video game industry is run and the hell that a lot of these employees are put through. Like even jokingly putting that up as your title and your thing kind of is gonna hit people the wrong way. It's gonna hit the ear the wrong way. Like recognize that, fool.
Yeah, it's not. I don't know. It's that. And then the last thing I want to talk about with the River City Girls Zero thing is this weird anger that's going on right now because you can choose the language of the game, right? And
Okay.
it's of the
Yeah.
translation. So you can have it as English new, English literal, Spanish, Japanese, all of these other ones. And people are really upset about the labeling of literal for the original translation of the game, and I don't understand that. Can you
I
maybe
don't know.
shed
I
some light on
mean,
that for me?
I guess it depends on exactly what the translation ends up being, because if it is a literal one for one translation and there's things like broken English and things like that, if there's terms that maybe don't quite make sense and the syntax is off, but it is a one for one translation, right? Then that is what it is. It's a literal translation. But if it's not word for word, like the second that they go through and they say, okay, we have translated this word for word, but now we're going to make it like we're going to fix some grammatical stuff that doesn't exist in our language and things like that, then it's no longer literal translation and you can't use that word. So without knowing exactly what they do in that translation, I would, if I saw that, understand it as the original intention of the word, the idea that it is a literal one-for-one translation, meaning that you may be missing stuff because there's going to be things that are said and on screen that don't make sense, like essentially to your understanding of the English language. And for some people, that might be a preferred way to play it. I don't know why you would want it that way, but it's like those people that prefer to watch anime without the subtitles on, even though they don't speak Japanese, and they're just like, this is just this is the way it was quote unquote intended to be, and so that's the way I want to watch it. Sure, like fine, like enjoy your entertainment the way you want to, but to be mad at that in any way sounds really weird to me. Like I don't know. Like is there any more context to why people
I
are
don't.
like
All I know is
are
that
upset about
Way
it?
Forward did a tweet. They did a tweet talking about how they're very sorry for the usage of the term literal. What we meant was the new translation is more in line with the way they talk in the first River City Girls game. Like we literally spiced it up and added language and changed the syntax to feel more like it was in tune with that game. And the literal translation was a literal translation of the game as it originally was. We've understand the problem of our ways, the error of our ways, and we're working on a patch to change it to
Yeah.
RCG or original.
Yeah. It sounds to me like they misused the word literal.
Yeah.
That they said literal, and then anybody out there that speaks Japanese could easily call them out and be like, "No, that's not what they said."
Yeah.
So they've made themselves look like ignorant by claiming that this is the translation of the language, and then have it not be. That definitely can make you look like an idiot.
Yeah,
So
I
if they
get
use the
that.
word literal
Okay.
and it's not literal, then that's probably where that's coming
It's
from.
better. I'll say that. We did the final fight with the new translation and the literal translation to see if anything was changed about the fact that Kyoko and Masako were shot.
Yeah.
And the literal one is better. Like, I mean, I guess I'll use original going forward, but it's just one of those situations where, yeah, it would have felt like it feels like a rush job. This was something that was
Yeah.
supposed to come out in December, and then it got delayed to February, and it was kind of stealth dropped. Like
Yeah.
they released it on the 14th, and it was the day before where they put out a release trailer to be like, yeah, you can play it. You can play it tomorrow, and I'm like, oh, can I? That seems
I mean,
weird.
just to
Like,
to kind of bookend things with some of the stuff we talked about at the beginning with the Majora's Mask stuff and
yeah,
and how it's and all of the N64 stuff on the Switch just being just jank mess. Like this idea of the rushed re-release, the rushed remake is becoming way too common for my liking. Like there's definitely the one or two that are coming out that are getting that time dedicated to them and making them worth it, right? Like, and I'm totally down for that. I'm excited about the Portal announcement, for instance, because by all accounts there is going to be some love given to them to make them work on the Switch and be a little less janky than, let's be honest, a 20-year-old game at this point for Portal was like what 15-year-old game, like that kind of stuff. I'm looking forward to it, but there is all the chance in the world that that's going to drop and just be just a mess as well. We'll see. It's why I'm not pre-ordering it. It's one of the big things that I feel kind of strongly about with all of this sort of stuff is the re-release and the remakes and all this sort of stuff that are coming out and they end up feeling like rush jobs. If that's going to happen, we have to stop prepaying for these games because that's the first step in like stopping this kind of wave as consumers. Because the problem is that for me it seems like that's the main catalyst here is they know that they can say they're going to remake River City Girls Zero or the original title for it and call it this or whatever, but they're saying we're going to finally do that thing that our fan base has been asking for. A bunch of people dump a bunch of money before the game even comes out, and then it comes out and it's this and it's got like some weird stuff in it that like people don't love and things like that, and people that it doesn't matter, they've already got your money, guys. Whereas if it came out and it wasn't up to snuff and it felt like a rush job, you could then make the decision to not pay for it until they do something about that. And at which point they'll stop just rush jobbing this stuff when they realize that they have to put some actual work into it. But right now, the narrative on this stuff is all we have to say is beloved game name re-released on beloved new system, and it's going to print money for itself, even if we don't do anything for it.
yeah. I mean, it
Yeah,
is.
and
And one of the other like just kind of like it gave me this like kind of the creeping horrors. Like it gave me a weird feeling in my stomach. Limited run games is part of the production of this game, like not
Yeah.
like after the fact Limited Run Games is going to produce it, they have a splash screen like in association with Limited Run Games, and the two borders, because the game is small because it's a 4x3 game from
Right.
1994, so you can put
Right.
borders on the side. Both of them are kind of advertising for Limited Run Games. In the lower right hand corner, big letters, it says Limited Run Games. And I
Weird.
didn't buy this from Limited Run Games. I didn't think I was doing that. And like, there's part of me that does want to pre-order it from Limited Run Games, mostly because you get like little action figures of Kyoko and Masako, and I would like them on my desk as somebody who cares about these characters. But
Yeah.
it does feel very strange that like, oh, I didn't realize that you had so much in the game on this one,
Yeah,
which
it
is
does get weird because like we talked about them earlier, and I had this little source of warmth that like it's great for game history and like gaming historians, like to have a company out there that is doing this kind of work that they're doing, and obviously they're a business, they need to make their money, but like it's cool that they are out there doing it and preserving some pieces of history. But then you talk about how they will tweak things, they will make small changes, and it seems like, well, weird, like that we're gonna these guys are now the curator, and they're gonna go out of their way to make alterations, and now, like you're saying, be straight up involved in the creation of these things. That starts to get really weird, right? Like, being a company that sits back and says this is a game that's going to be important to history, let's put some money behind preserving it going forward, that's cool. Saying like, well, we're gonna dip our hands into creating video game history, that's weird to me.
it really, and I didn't even, and the thing is, you don't know it when you put on the borders where that Limited Run Game logo is obscured by the menu overlay. So you don't know until you exit out
Okay,
that
until you're
like
in
that's
it.
what you have. And I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
well, I'm not going to play with the border anyway. Like, I looked at the two, I'm like, those are interesting, but I'm not going to use one. But then I was watching somebody play on Twitch, and lo and behold, it's huge letters, Limited Run Games, and I'm like, that's really something how you guys turned this Twitch streamer's stream into
Into an
advertising
ad.
for you.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
it's just and the last thing I want to talk about this is literally like the new dressing, and then it boots up an emulated copy of this game, right? That's what happens,
Yeah.
which is oof. But there's a how to play screen that tells you how to play, but it doesn't go into any of like the special moves, or there are motorcycle sections. It does not explain the controls for those motorcycle sections. It is a one-page thing that's like Y is punch, B is jump, A is kick. And is like, you guys literally are taking the time to do this. Give us a how to play that covers the whole game.
Yeah.
Explain the dash mechanics. Explain
The stuff that
special
I'm actually going to
moves.
need this screen for. Like, run, jump, and kick are things I think I might be able to figure out pretty quick. But you know what I might have a hard time with? Motorcycle sections that I don't play all the time and won't play again after this.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game that I got through the first 4.5 levels. I got to the boss of the 5th level the first time I played it before I knew that there were special moves. And those special moves, they're essentially required to beat the final bosses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, really, and I'm like, all right, so I'm playing a Japanese game with like a fan translation laid over it. I'm not expecting you to tell me how to play the game, right?
Right.
But when I'm buying a first time released in the West, cultivated new experience with all sorts of like added features, you could at least tell me that if I hold block and then hit a button, I'll do a special move.
Yeah.
Like, even the manual, because it includes the manual, has a section on the special moves. It's not translated, but somebody did mention, well, you can read the manual, and if you then go online to find a translation of the manual, it tells you how to do that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to have to do that. I just paid $15 for a game that I could have pirated for free. Like, you need to give me the value.
Yeah, what is the reason that I'm paying this money for, if not for the added benefit of things like translations and stuff? And if they feel that that's not where the value should be, then you say that's fine. I don't have to give you my money again in the future, and you just don't, and that's fine. That's a business transaction. It's just that's the only way that we're going to be able to put a stop to this stuff is people have to stop spending the money on it, and like that, like I applaud the people out there that talk about how they're struggling with this stuff and they feel like it should be addressed, and they're right. Like attention should be brought to this kind of stuff, but more often than not, especially in an industry like gaming, like the answer is just don't spend your money on it, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
like, you
Oh,
know,
and
it's
I fully wasn't going to spend my money on it, but then I'm like, I need to know the value of the added stuff because
yeah.
I do this show because that's just where I'm at. Is I need to know the value, and I guess my Jerry Springer final say is there's not much there. Wait for it to be on sale. If you're gonna buy a game this week, buy Infernax. It's the same price right now because it's on sale on the Switch.
Yeah.
Infernax is an actual great game that they put the care in, they put the work in to make sure that you're getting the value there. River City Girls Zero, I know it's a
Hmm.
recognizable thing, but don't support it because what you're getting, you can get it all online and you can actually play the game if you're interested in the game for a lot less. They didn't do anything to say this is what you need to own.
Right.
And that's unfortunate. That's the end of the story. Is that it's unfortunate. Anything else you'd like to add this week, Sejim?
Still trucking through the Minish Cap. It ended up being a little
Nice.
bit longer than I expected because right after our conversation last week, I talked about how I felt like I was kind of trucking along because I was through like half of the dungeons and stuff. There's then a huge part where it slows down like crazy because you have to do a bunch of that Kinstone stuff finally. And you know, that is what it is. We talked about how it's really weird because it is kind of tied up in the trading system, and sometimes like you have collected a million green Kinstones, but it's not the right green Kinstones, so you got to keep looking, and that's really weird. And it's the game artificially slows down in some ways that is really unfortunate, as we kind of talked about already. So I'm struggling with that, but I still am being struck time and time again by how much of what I understood to be kind of important Legend of Zelda lore is actually present, and for the first time present in this particular uh, game. It's just weird to me. This one entry has so much in it, and it's this one weird like GBA half respected release from the series.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like the prequel trilogy or like a Rogue One, where the game exists specifically to give a place for that lore to bloom. It's
Yeah, but
because
I
it's
will
after
say
the
that it
fact.
doesn't
Like,
feel forced in so many ways.
mhm.
And when I say like stuff that's important to the lore, I mean things like the presence of the Molmits and those guys, right?
Yeah.
Like that idea, like I thought was a straight up Skyward Sword invention, but no, here they are present here and things like that. Yeah, there's just there's really weird little bits here and there that again are surprising me and pleasant and fun, and they're what are driving me to the end of that game at this point. It's just that there is just so much wrapped up in just some mechanics that are just boring.
Yeah.
That's all.
that's that's a good way to put it. Well, I'm glad you're playing it. The new Horizon game came out, Horizon Forbidden West. But I was able to order a Regala edition on release date, and we still haven't gotten that in yet, so I haven't delved into it. So, in addition to Elden Ring next episode, we'll probably also have something to say about the new Horizon game. I still need to finish the first one
Mm,
because it got overshadowed pretty quickly by the fact that Breath of the Wild came out. I want to say like 2 weeks after it. So,
yeah.
but it's people are excited, and I'm excited to give it a try because I finally got to the point in Horizon Zero Dawn where I'm like, oh, this is a fun game. Weird that you guys put it like locked behind 4 hours of story.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk. We'll talk more
Yeah.
about the Horizon stuff next week.
And
Yeah.
Siegen got his keyboard, so keyboard watch is done for one of us. Mine is supposedly out for delivery, but it hasn't arrived yet. So we'll
Ooh.
see. But that photo you sent me is looking good. I hope you like your crazy yellow keyboard.
It is very yellow. I love it.
Excellent. So then the last thing I want to leave with is a question that has been plaguing me since last night, and that is if Scott Bakula and Count Dracula got put into a matter transfer machine like Brundlefly from The Fly, would they come out as Scott Dracula or Dracula Bakula?
Count Bakula.
I don't like Count Bakula. I don't think it works.
I don't like Count Bakula. He's not real.
He can't be real. Count Bakula's not real. Count Chocula, I'm down with. Count Bakula. But yeah, so let us know what you think. What you think if it's Scott Dracula or Bakula Dracula, or I guess Count Bakula, which it's Count Bakula. Siegen already won the fight. I hadn't even considered it. But then sitting here, I'm like, well, Scott Bakula is his proper title. He can't just be Dracula. He's Count Dracula. That's his title. That's literally his title, is Count. Man, thanks, Siegen. Also, there's an episode of Quantum Leap where Sam may or may not leap into a vampire in the 4th season. Check it out. It's out there on the streaming platforms. Yeah. All right. So if you would like to share with Siegen any other sort of crazy kids-based shows that might be remakes of Mork and Mindy, he is available on Twitter at Siege versus the World.
And if you really enjoyed how much we brought up Quantum Leap this time and want to hear more about it, you can message Devon at Devon D. Decker.
Oh, wait, final thing. We were wrong about the Bengals winning the Super Bowl. Apologies. Secondarily, during this episode, I had a Chardonnay dew, Siegen, and it really is quite perky. Will, please bring us home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Siegen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.